For the slides which you have already covered, I'm just going to skim through and I'm going to just check with everyone if there's any questions, if there's any doubts that anyone has. So by now we all have understood what compensation is. It consists of your base salary, plans, employees, allowance plans, stocks. Based on what you want to create, it will be there. Salary or hourly plans represent the rate per frequency that an employee is eligible to earn. It can be monthly, it can be annually, it can be bi-weekly based on what your business decides. Compensation is not the actual wages in the employee's paycheck. Compensation defines the base pay elements, your allowance. It not a combination of different compensation elements define your actual wage. Your actual wage would be what you get in hand. Compensation may include the accounting of one-time payments and stock grants. If your organization has stock options, then yes, you will get. Compensation is assigned to employees only. No compensation is assigned to contingent worker. Circling back to the point that employee only mean that the worker type has to be employee, then only they'll be eligible for compensation. Being eligible for a compensation plan does not mean that the employee is assigned to it, and being assigned to it does not mean that the employee will get an actual payment for it. These are respective to all those variable components in anyone's compensation package. Any questions on this?
Regarding the bonus and other allowances, so manually for each and every employee, we need to configure it.
For why do we need to configure it for each and every employee?
No, because the last point says being eligible for a plan does not mean the employee is assigned to it. So just in case for executive level 1, we have all the allowances which we have created. And for some reasons, for a particular employee, we are not assigning a phone allowance. That means we need to manually configure for that particular consultant in his payroll.
The plan is already configured.
Okay.
In this particular point, they're not saying anything about configuration. They are saying that if an employee is eligible for a plan, that does not mean that it will be assigned to it. So using the same example that you have said. So what this means is, this is not related to configuring. You configure the plan once.
Okay.
This point is specific using the same example that he said. An executive is eligible for a phone allowance, but the business has decided not to give them any phone allowance. So that is the difference, that though they are eligible for it, but you have not assigned any value to it.
Okay, yeah, get it.
Right. So even if, let's say, you are eligible for a housing allowance, but for some reason, let's say for the first 1 year, the organization puts you on a what is called probation period.
Yeah.
Right. Until the first year, you are eligible for the plan, but there's nothing that is getting paid out to you for that. So that is what this one means, that even you're not eligible, it's not assigned to you.
Okay.
Yes.
So the value would be 0 there.
Yes, there would be. Even it won't be applicable. Like in the case of salary, we used to enter the salary amount, right? We won't even touch that section for that employee. It will remain, you don't even have to enter 0 there. It will by default pick it up as 0.
Okay.
Your compensation is what is defined in the back end, like your plans, your salary package, your allowances, any one-time payments, right? So not everything in compensation will be your actual wage. What this point has mean that actual wage means what you get in hand every month or every week, whatever that is, right? And that is not defined in one compensation. It is defined in different compensation elements. And a sum of those compensation elements is what makes your actual wage. For example, a combination of your allowance and your hourly pay makes up your actual wage. So what this point, it's a very thin line, I'd say a gray line between what this point means. Compensation is not the actual wages. Compensation has multiple elements, which we already saw. your standard base pay, your car allowance, your bonus. So all of that combined makes your actual wage based on whatever is eligible to your worker profile. That is only it means. No other meaning this has.
When we had included so many other elements, why is it separate? That benefit is completely taken out as a complete different module in Workday.
That is, I really don't know because, okay, so what do you call, if you're in the US, what do you call your health allowance and your dental and vision care? What do you call that?
Insurance.
Okay, so in Workday, it's your benefits.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah,
I don't know
benefits
why
and
they have
medical
put it,
insurance,
yeah, I don't
medical
know why they
benefits.
put it separately, but this is how it is. Your
Okay.
compensation is everything that you receive. Benefit is everything that you have to pay out from your pocket, though there's a benefit of paying that money because at the end you get your health insurance, right? The longer run benefit is that. But the technical terminology benefit and compensation are different.
Got it.
I just wanted to clarify, please correct me if my understanding is right. Compensation means whatever is being promised in your offer letter or appointment letter by the organization, and wages is something you actually earn. So sometimes I might take leave for 15 days and I might get paid for 15 days only out of 30 days. So that is my wage, but that cannot be my compensation because company has promised me something for entire month. Is this right?
It would be a good example, but I'll share a better example. So let's say your compensation, are you in the US or in the India location?
I'm in India location, but I do have insight for US payroll as well.
Okay, so let's take the example in case of India, you have your CTC,
Mhm.
right? Your CTC is not what you actually get paid in hand every month,
Right.
right? So your CTC is your compensation, your actual wage is what you get in hand,
Okay.
right?
Gross and net, you mean?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. But when you go to the US,
Mhm.
your compensation will include some of the variable components like stocks,
Right.
right? And there are some bonus as well. Some organizations like VMware has it in a way that they um, semi-annually, twice a year, they get 10% bonus, everyone. But
Mhm.
that is contingent to the fact how the company has performed. It might
Okay.
range from 2 to 3% or 5% or 10%. So your compensation will include that 10% bonus and give you the final amount. But when it actually happens, that might be lower than what it was shown on the offer letter.
Got it.
So if it-
Discretion to the performance.
yes, and also based on your performance. It's another variable factor to it.
Yeah, got it.
Cool. And then by now, I think everyone should be familiar with this particular visual. And we also know what eligibility rules are. I'm not going to go through each points again. We created the eligibility rules for location and for management level. Now, compensation elements, they map compensation plans to your payroll earnings. Your compensation elements like standard base pay, your base pay, car allowance, bonus. Defines base pay on compensation grades and grade profiles. Compensation elements and the payment types that are included in the compensation plans and compensation element groups. Oh, these are just some examples like base pay, car allowance, and commissions are all example of these elements. So these elements are used to create earning codes, which the payroll understands, Workday payroll understands. I think we don't need to go through this since you already know what grade and grade profiles are. I think a lot of you already created. If you have not, please do that. It's going to help you only. We did this assignment yesterday. We had our grade and we assigned it to a job profile, and we also did a test hire. We now know there are different types of plans. Like in case of regular pay, you have salary, hourly allowance, incentive plans, bonus, merit, stock commissions, and an ad hoc type one-time payments. These are just visuals of what you are already familiar with. You have already created this. Create compensation plans and package, already completed. As part of the staffing events, propose comp hire, did that. As part of the new hire, propose comp change. Will take some time. We'll cover this in the business process as we get more employees hired into the system. Propose comp offer employment agreement. This is specific to Workday recruiting, so we might skip this. Can also be done at any time. Now, compensation events are usually part of a bigger process. These are usually used as a process either in hire or in a change job process. But that does not mean you cannot use them individually. To use these processes ad hoc, these are called as request compensation or request grade change. Request grade change is not something that we use very often, but request compensation change is something that can be used as an ad hoc process. Okay, so this is an important slide from the perspective of troubleshooting the compensation. Now I've continued to talk about defaulting. That defaulting is nothing but values already existing in the process for you to just go in and add in a dollar value. That's all you need to do in compensation. But sometimes that does not happen, right? So a combination of that is not defaulting, the first one. And what could be the issue? Is there an eligibility rule on the package that is not working correctly? Is the employee eligible for more than one package? This is the most common one that employees get to face, or the compensation admin get to face, that unknowingly, without observing what the existing configuration is, they create eligibility rules. And then a particular group of employees become eligible for more than one package. And at the time of defaulting, you don't get the right package. And then the second most common issue is, does the employee meet the eligibility on the package? Sometimes the employee is eligible for the grade, but they're not eligible for the package. So we need to make sure that all those eligibility rules are working together. Excuse me. And likewise, grade not defaulting or plan not defaulting, or if they are incorrect compensation. The primary reason you will always see is the eligibility. Everywhere is their eligibility rule. Is the plan employee's package? Is the employee meet the eligibility on the plan? So everywhere you would see that the troubleshooting starts from looking at the eligibility logics. That's why understanding the eligibility rules, how they work, is very, very important. And I would say this one again, it's okay if your package is not for defaulting during the testing. Just creation of these compensation element and you're able to manually enter those values in the system, it's a big deal. Right? If you know this, then going forward, if you get a project to work on compensation, it will be easier for you. Because if you don't even know this, it will take a lot of time just to learn this, what we have done. So practice what we have done, even if it's not defaulting, that's okay. That's absolutely okay. You don't need to stress out, right? But in the real world examples, things will default because in that tenant that you will work with, there won't be too much dummy data. You will have real-time data and those things work as expected. This is a tenant which has a lot of dummy data. That's why sometimes the employees that you create might be eligible for more than one criteria, so it might not default. So don't worry about it. Just move on. All right. Now a quick quiz. The first one is a true false, and I'll request everyone to participate in this. Give me 1 second. All right. Compensation eligibility rules uses a framework that is completely unique to compensation and is unlike anything else in the workday system. True or false?
True.
True.
Okay, that's correct. It does use a framework that is completely unique to compensation. The second one is also true false. The system will allow you to enter a base amount that is less than or greater than the grade range for which the employee was or is eligible? True or false?
True.
True.
Anyone for false?
I could go for false.
Yeah.
Any particular reason to go for false?
Because we are already setting up a range. So system may not allow you to go, or it might not throw a red error, but it might throw an alert, which is in yellow.
So you're right. You're absolutely right about that. But still the answer remains true because system still allows you.
Okay.
Systems allows you and goes through the prorated one.
No, that proration is applicable to the case that we did yesterday for 50%. If it's 100%, then you will get the full salary. But the point here is, will the system allow you to enter for a value more than outside the range that is defined? The answer is yes, though coming to the point which you absolutely said correctly, it does give you an alert, but alerts are not errors, right?
Yeah.
Only errors stop you from going to the next step. Alert, just alert you about it. It does not stop you from moving to the next step. So you will get an alert, that's okay, but still you can move on with the higher range of value than defined by the range, right?
Yeah.
The last question, what will happen if an employee is eligible for 3 allowance plans, but the plans are not in the compensation package for which they are eligible? Oh, that's a good one. I'll repeat
They
the
may
question.
they may not get an option while they select or while they apply.
Okay. Okay.
They will not get paid as per the what has been mentioned in compensation of their actual offer letter. So they will get deprived of that.
So the true answer to this is they will get paid.
Manual overrides are possible, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So, but again, to be able to manually override, you have to be eligible for the plan, right? So what will happen is, in this case, these are one-off cases which usually are not a good way to set it up. But in a case where an employee is eligible, let's say I'm eligible for 3 different allowance plans, but those allowance plan belong to, let's say, engineering department, and I'm from sales, right? My compensation package eligibility is for a sales package, all right? And in sales package, I have my own different allowances, or even if I don't have any allowances, but for some reason, the job profile that I have makes me eligible for these 3 different allowance plans. So I will be eligible for those plans as well, but it won't default on my profile. Like a recruiter or any HR person will have to go into my profile, request an ad hoc change in my compensation, and add in that allowance manually.
Oh,
It will not
only to you, right? Not
only to me. Only to me.
Okay. Okay.
In this case, if I'm the employee, it will be applicable only to me, and
Okay.
I will be paid out accordingly for that. But the thing is that the answer should be that it will not default on my profile.
Yeah. So the employee should ideally raise a ticket or
No,
raise a
I will not.
concern.
I will not raise a ticket. I'm getting extra money. Why would I give it back? But this is, see, these are compensation things which a compensation admin has to figure out. There's nothing wrong in this. Understand? There's nothing wrong in this. Maybe the profile that I am, it's a special profile. Let's say I'm hired for 6 months, and my profile is supposed to work on a special projects. And as part of the deal, I told them that if I'm working 6 months, if I'm giving my 6 months, I need these and these allowance. I'm traveling somewhere. I need a fuel allowance, or I travel every day for work. I need a fuel allowance. Though fuel allowance is only applicable to executives, right? But it was decided as part of my recruitment that I will get these allowances. So in that case, the profile that I have is eligible for these plans, and I should be getting paid. So there's nothing wrong in getting paid for that, right? The eligibility logics help you derive the defaulting of what you should get, but at any point they can be changed. Always remember that. There are always one-off cases in organizations where an employee is getting more than what, like something extra than what is being decided. There's always, you will find few employees who are getting those. So that's okay. Workday does not restrict, like there's no hard restriction on these kind of rules. It's every business has their own caveats. Every business has their own, special employees. So that is how it works.
So you only change that manually override for that particular term or that particular only that time, and then you change it back.
Until I'm working in the organization, I should be getting that. Once I leave the organization, it won't make a difference because my worker profile will not be there.
Will not be there. Yeah. Sure.
So, Rohan, this did happen once when I was working with IBM. An employee got paid extra by an error. Not sure if it was payroll or by an admin, but they get to realize these kind of errors only not immediately, probably by a month or two when they run the reports or when they see there is a discrepancies. And they had to go back to the employer asking if he could pay back the amount, and that became a huge case because the employee was saying that I can pay back, but it does affect my income tax returns. I wouldn't, it makes a huge difference so that was altogether a different case. But what my intention to mention right now is that we may not realize such incidences, or we will not be able to identify immediately. To rectify it, it might take a couple of months, or it might, if we are closer to the audit, that is when they would realize it.
That's absolutely correct and a very good sharing. Thank you, Jiska, for that. And it does happen, not very often. And usually these kind of errors are caught at the payroll end, because payroll realize if something is fishy. They get to understand. If it's not caught at the payroll end initially, then if someone is hired for that same particular role, same package, and someone at the comp admin level looks at, or someone in the HR, like anyone can catch it as long as it's been recreated, right? If everything is going smoothly, no one is taking care of it. Like system does not throw error. It only throws error when there is a worker profile issue, like something happening on a transaction happening on a worker profile. But in cases like this, that's why it becomes a big issue. And I've worked in an organization which paid millions of dollars for a case like this. So I have been part of that organization when I was in the US. And this was like not only one, there were a group of employees who were paid out extra because of a payroll error. It was not a compensation error. And this is before Workday, before they moved to Workday when I joined in. This happened a few years back before I joined that organization. So it happens. It's a big deal, specifically in the US, maybe not in other regions, but in the US, there's a lot of compliance and legal formalities that you have to get into for these. But yes, it has to get caught either way at the payroll end or the compensation, or someone in the HR has to catch it. The earlier, the best, because getting money back is something that a company should never expect. So yeah.
Normally, the payroll journals before processing the payrolls will be reviewed by the team, right? I mean, yes, I agree that manual errors are there, but the journals will be reviewed before payroll processing, or does it happen in big organizations?
It is completely dependent on the organization payroll processes, how they
Right.
process it. I've seen organizations who have like a big payroll team, but they still make mistakes. And I've seen organizations with just 3 people managing 5,000 employees payroll and still doing the best. So there's a lot that goes. See, these are like questions which, if asked in the interview, you have to focus on the business side of it. Then you don't have to go into the details of Workday. because these are scenario questions, these are behavioral questions. That what if something happens, what do you do? There's nothing that you can do. Like, you're not a payroll expert, right? What you can do is give the maximum support, give whatever information they need from the system, right? But also focus on the leadership aspect of it. If your leaders are not leading the right processes, then definitely mistakes will happen, right? So in that case, the employees will not be blamed. It will be the leaders, the managers who will be blamed because of following, bad practices. And it does happen. It does happens in big organizations. And but to answer your question, again, they might or they might not. I'm not familiar with the payroll processes much, but most organizations, if I specifically in the US, they're very strict about payroll processing. So I'm sure there must be a lot of audits and checks that happens every day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the next set of quiz, you need to match the terms. The first one is provide pay range guidelines as references. Which one on the right side is that?
B.
Yes, it's compensation grade. The next one is group compensation plans. Excuse me. The next one is
Great.
groups compensation plans and grades.
Package.
Is C.
Compensation
Compensation
package.
package.
Yes, that's correct. Third one, determine an employee's eligibility for a compensation component during staffing events.
Compensation.
Compensation
D.
eligibility
Compensation.
rule.
Eligibility rule.
Correct. The next one, a component for which an employee is paid and for what purpose.
F.
It's a compensation element.
Yes. Second last, required component to link compensation in HCM with payroll to ensure accurate payroll earnings.
Compensation
Compensation
package.
plan.
Plan.
No. So you answered the previous one incorrectly. I was waiting if someone would answer it correctly. So talking about the fourth point, a component for which an employee is paid and for what purpose. These are all your compensation plans,
Plans.
not elements.
Oh,
Your
okay.
salary, hourly allowance, these are all compensation plans.
Plan. Correct.
Now, the next part, which is required component to link compensation, that is where your compensation element comes into.
Oh.
Okay. The last one allows localization for pay range guidelines. I think it's very easy.
Compensation grade.
profile.
Pay profiles. Yes, correct. And that marks the end of our compensation topic.